And we're live. Welcome back, everyone. Please welcome Mr. Reiss, our next guest. Hi, Eric.
Thank you.
Thank you very much for coming.
Thank you for having me. I have to start by apologizing. I have a terrible cold, so I cough and I'll have to mute my button and cough at regular intervals. I just wanted to warn you, but I tell you, I'm doing what I can do. I have tea with honey. I have I have cough syrup. I have stuff that I can spray up my nose. But since we're talking Central Europe here in Slovakia, I also brought the hardcore things with me. So,
Fantastic.
and
So you
stuff to
took
blow my
all
nose.
the precautions available.
I took all the precautions I could. Thank you so much for having me. I wish I was there with you in Bratislava. It's absolutely one of the most charming cities I've ever visited. I love it.
Thank you so much. I mean, as a homeboy, I appreciate this very, very much. That's really nice to hear. So next time you're over, let us know. I'd absolutely love to meet you sometimes.
Great.
Um,
Well, let's make that happen sometime. Preferably when I'm not sick.
I've been sick recently as well, so it's perfect time to do this remotely. Eric, I'd like to give you a opening question. I have read in your bio that you went through several jobs that were really different from what you're doing now. Let's put it that way. So what made you stick to your current profession for over 30 years, as you say?
I, well, it's because the jobs that I've had were not different at all. I my official jobs started in entertainment and in the theater, and that's user experience. It's all user experience, and you learn something from all of these jobs. I don't think anything has changed. Just my title has changed over the years. User experience isn't just what we do online. User experience is the sum of all the touch points that we go through some kind of an interaction with a company or with a product or with each other. Uh, User experience. Hey, you've got those really cool braces on. That's this is all part of the user experience. And I tried to arrange my camera here so that you weren't actually looking at my very messy kitchen. Uh, yeah, that's all user experience. So no, I never changed jobs. They called it different things.
I think I can absolutely agree because I myself graduated from theater school.
Okay.
And here I am working in a UX studio. So that actually makes a lot of sense to me.
I'm glad. Well,
Um,
for all of you out in the audience, I hope this makes sense to you too. Whatever you were trained to do, whatever you have done in the past, this has all contributed to your ability to make this a better world.
and maybe to giving experiences to other people, right?
Absolutely.
Because they
Absolutely.
like, from my point of view, I think about the fact that you actually create user experience to other people when they're users of your company,
Hmm.
of being with you, seeing you, hearing you, experiencing something together, maybe being close to you, maybe hating you. That's all user experience that you create for others if you're the product yourself.
Absolutely. Absolutely. I agree entirely.
I have another question. We might have some, or I expect we have some up and coming talents in the audience. We've been together since morning, and we've now and then talked about how people are trying to get into the UX area, trying to get their first job, or maybe thinking about studies, usually abroad, since it's not all that easy in Central Europe. Um, you, as a thoroughly experienced person from the area, let's put it that way. I don't want to use another title. Maybe do you have some piece of advice for those people who are going to come after us, after you and me, who are going to design those first apps that I will not be able to use anymore because I'll be too rigid and old by that time. um, Maybe is there anything you'd like them to know that you didn't know being their age? Take your time, Eric. It's absolutely okay.
I think the main danger these days is that when we have I think of user experience as an umbrella that covers a lot of disciplines. It can be information architecture, it can be interaction design, it can be usability. All of these things contribute to development. All of these things contribute to user experience. But I'm not sure that any of us can truly call ourselves user experience designers. We're good at some of these things under the umbrella, and we have to recognize that there are other things that are not part of the umbrella. And what really bothers me right now is that the professional communities fight with each other. The content strategists say, oh no, we invented this. And the information architects say, we invented this. And the usability people say, oh, but without us. And then the interaction designers come and say, well, we were doing this. I think this kind of infighting is not good. And it puts the focus on what we do online. And clearly, most of what we're doing is online. But the truth is, user experience happens everywhere. Not to get into a lot of religion here, but Jesus Christ's first miracle was changing 6 vats of water into wine at the wedding. Like, man, if that isn't good user experience, I don't know what is. And anyone who decides to choose to make alcohol as their first miracle, that's okay. That's user experience.
Yeah,
He wasn't
this
going
might
to
seem
his smartphone. He wasn't clicking on the app. I said, God, are you listening? Because I've got this water here and we don't have anything to drink. That's not the way it worked.
This might seem like truly funny, but I actually am making my own wine. Okay, I'll let you know next time you're around. Eric, it says you are going to tell
I'm
us
going
something
over
about
to the Slivovitz.
Absolutely. I'm not going to spoil it by saying that the alien egg is made in Czech Republic. You're going to tell us
I
something.
know it is, but I'm part of the Jelinek family, so I have a responsibility.
I absolutely take that. Yeah, go, Eric. You're going to tell us something about ethics of AI and the deadly sins that keep us from building a better world. I don't mean to get too much into it or to spoil anything for anybody. I'm very curious myself. I just wanted to ask you, what was it originally, if you can tell us, that made you create this speech that you're going to give? The original spark of it.
The talk about ethics I thought was important because I was at a conference in the United States, and the Americans don't understand the difference between ethics and morals, and there is a difference. And then there are a lot of people who have very, very strong opinions about this stuff, but haven't actually read anything about morals or ethics. They don't know what they're talking about. There are a lot of things that are happening in the world these days that I don't know. I just thought that it was important because I'd read a lot of philosophy when I was at university. And the other thing is that we are getting involved we're having to make a lot of ethical decisions in our work. And it doesn't matter whether you're an information architect or a developer or whatever. We are making decisions that are going to affect other people's lives, and we have to make good decisions. And all right, now I'm almost starting the talk. But I thought it was important, and no one else was talking about this, at least not in a way that I thought was the least bit sensible. So,
ladies and gentlemen, Mr. Eric Reiss.
Thank you very, very much. Thank you for that lovely introduction. I can't see you. I'm going to share my screen and start my PowerPoint. Unfortunately, I don't get a lot of feedback, so I'll try to take it at a tempo that is reasonable. I'll try to hit my numbers. We have about 40 minutes left. So let's see how it goes. I will share my screen. If I can click on the yes, share screen. I think it's so funny. World Usability Day, and we're fighting with all kinds of stuff. So now we've got to turn on the PowerPoint. Oh, I had to close down my computer because it would not let me in. So it also shut down my PowerPoint, which was already, it It was all ready for you people. Come on, open up. There you go. Okay. And we're in. Hello. Presentation. I hope you can see it. I realized as late as last night in the description, I said the ethics of IA, and IA is information architecture. No. This is a lot to do with artificial intelligence, because this is where we're going to have to make some very difficult choices. So let me run you through this. Oh, by the way, I have not done anything to try and make this politically correct. I didn't harm any animals, and it's all recycled electrons. So it's a very green presentation. I know that some of you may have heard this before. If you have, I apologize. Go out, make some coffee, have a beer, come back at 2:15, and there'll be something else interesting. But more importantly, if you have ignored these issues or haven't thought about them, you need to step up and take a stand. So what are ethics and what are morals? And as we talked about in the beginning, the Americans don't really differentiate between ethics and morals, but there's a huge difference. Basically, if we look at morals, these are the beliefs I have accepted. This is what we learn from our parents, from our teachers, from our religious leaders. Ethics is how we practice them. And what we believe and how we practice things isn't always the same. It would be nice if we lived in a binary world where it's all black and white, but it isn't. We have Moses coming down from the mount. The 10 Commandments, thou shalt not kill. And yet during the First World War, there were French Catholic priests who were blessing weapons. And you say, well, all right, that's the French, and that was 103 years ago. But no, here we have a priest blessing a cruise missile during the Serbian War. This is kind of hypocritical. We have to remember also, the things we've internalized when we say, okay, you need to do this. You make this decision for me. There are still 3 fingers pointing back at yourself. Facebook, Google, YouTube, everybody is being put on the line these days because they're making decisions either with regard to fake news or something else that is affecting people often in very negative ways. And it's very easy to blame it on the algorithm, but we're the ones who are helping decide what these algorithms do. This isn't just something that happens in some magical black box and there's a developer sitting in the background. No, all of us are involved in this, and we need to be aware that we have immense opportunities for doing good, but we can also do a lot of bad too. So who is teaching artificial intelligence its moral values? Hey, look in the mirror. It's us. We're the ones who are teaching it. So let me tell you some stories. Jan, lovely man, lives just outside Prague, and he has an old iPhone that he wants to sell. And the iPhone is in great shape, but it needs a new battery. And as any of you who have had iPhones know, it's kind of expensive to exchange a battery on an iPhone. It lasts for maybe an hour and then it dies. So the question is, should Jan tell the person who wants to buy his iPhone that it has this problem, or should he just keep it a secret? That's a difficult decision. So what does your code of ethics say? Interestingly enough, the Nobel Prize in economics went to Joseph Stiglitz from Columbia University in 2001, where he talks about asymmetric information. And basically, if you know more as a buyer or a seller than the other person does, you have an advantage. imagine that it took so many years for people to figure out that this is just the way life works. But it makes these decisions very difficult. Let's talk a little more about Yan. Yan has found a letter on the street, an old-fashioned letter. Do you remember they were with paper and they had a stamp up in the corner? Well, so he finds a letter. It's got an address on it. Everything's fine. Is he going to put the letter in a mailbox? I don't know what it's like in Slovakia. In Denmark, it's very difficult to find a mailbox these days. But let's assume that he can put it in a mailbox. Is he going to do it? The thing is, this isn't easy either. There was a study back in Stanley Milgram, I think this is from 1962, where he and his associates spread a whole bunch of letters around, 400 in all, 100 that were going to friends of the Communist Party, 100 that were going to friends of the Nazi Party, 100 that were going to Medical Research Association, and 100 that were just to a private address. And almost all of them were returned to the private address. Most of them were returned to medical research. Very few of them went to the Nazis or the communists. So we tend to make decisions along the way that are not necessarily black and white. It gets tricky. It's going to get even more tricky. Yan has a good friend, and his name is Peter. And Peter was divorced a couple of years ago and has been very, very unhappy. Well, Peter comes over, and Yan and Peter have a beer together and a slivovitz. Can't forget the slivovitz. Peter is so happy because he's met a wonderful, wonderful woman. He really feels that his life is coming together again. And of course, Yan, as Peter's best friend, is very happy on his behalf that he's met somebody. He's going to get out in the world again. He's going to get over this depression after his divorce. It's all good. Okay, well, her name is Teresa, and Yan is walking down the Maiden Drag in Bratislava and is looking through the window of that wonderful cafe just up from the church that has all the traditional Czech food or Slovakian food. And he sees Peter sitting with a woman, and that woman is Teresa. And they are clearly good friends. There's just one problem. Teresa is married to another friend of Jan's, Thomas. So what is Jan going to do? Is he going to go in and confront Peter and Teresa? What is he going to say? Teresa, I know you're having an affair. You're cheating on Thomas. Peter is happy. Don't know how Teresa's life is, or should he tell Thomas? Screw up that marriage? Wow, these are really, really difficult decisions to make. There is no on and off here. Well, Teresa gets hit by a bus, she dies, and so we don't have to worry about that anymore. We'll move on. The point is the world is not binary. It is all gray. It's not ones and zeros or rights and wrongs or yes or no. It is gray. And that makes the decisions that we make, because the algorithms think in terms of ones and zeros. We are making a lot of decisions on behalf of the machinery in the background that can have a huge effect on how people perceive the world. When Google started in 1997, 1998, their motto was do no evil and make money. Make money is fine. Do no evil. Right there at the top of the list. That was a good thing. That was a good thing to say. Well, then they ran into problems in China because China wanted them to censor the results that were going out to Chinese nationals. So Google kind of went along with it for a while and then decided, okay, we want to make money and then we'll do no evil. So they got back into China. But do no evil was no longer top of their list. Today, it's make money and keep the government off our back. Do no evil doesn't even figure in any of the stuff they do. I mean, the Trump administration in the United States was after Google. And so Google decided to set up what they called their ethics committee. AI algorithms, we recognize that distinguishing fair from unfair bias is not always simple, blah, blah, blah. We seek to avoid unjust impacts. This is all lovely, but it's blather. And the truth is, this initiative was such a disaster that they ended up canceling the ethics board. So where is Google with regard to ethics? I don't know. So, oh, all right. So I won't say nasty things about Google. Let's move on to Apple. Apple has a gay pride watch face for its smartwatch, but because it's illegal to show the gay pride flag in the Russian Federation, Apple isn't showing it. And I've got to be honest, I would think that this is the decision of the owner of the watch, whether they want to display that, not necessarily Apple's. Suddenly you've got some engineers in Cupertino in California who are making a decision regarding what it means to be gay in the Russian Federation. And I'm sorry, I do not think it is the responsibility of engineers in Cupertino, California to determine gay rights in the Russian Federation. My opinion, I apologize, but this is exactly, it's that one finger you say, oh well, this is somebody else's decision. Oh no, they told me to do this. But you've got three fingers pointing back at yourself. And that reflects on your own code of ethics and what the morals were that you learned from your parents, your teachers, your religious leaders, and so on. YouTube does really weird things. If you watch a really radical video, very left-wing, right-wing, whatever, their algorithm says, he wants to see more of this. And so you go down a rabbit hole where you keep seeing the same types of content. And that's dangerous because suddenly you're in a little echo chamber where everybody is saying the same thing. And then you think that the whole world thinks this. You're not getting two sides to an argument. You're getting one side. It's very dangerous. There was a fake Zuckerberg video a couple of years ago, and suddenly Facebook decided, oh, well, maybe we need to look at this. There's a lot of stuff going on right now, but these problems occurred because people like us sort of said, I'm only following orders. I'll let somebody else make that decision. And we've got to stop doing that. Amazon. Amazon is really sneaky. This is a really good book by Indy Young called Mental Models. It's from Rosenfeld Media. And it says, it's got customer reviews. So that's social validation. That's good. So, only one left in stock. Order soon. Yeah, well, Amazon doesn't keep more than a couple of these books in stock, not the nerdy things that we read. And then at the bottom, I want it delivered by Tuesday. Order it 1 day shipping, fear of loss. They're hitting all the psychological buttons. And the best one is this, frequently bought together. There are 3 books from Rosenfeld Media, and you can buy them all 3 for $117. But the thing is, they cost $39 a piece. There is no bargain. 39 times 3 is 117. But this page is set up to push us in directions that are not unfair, but they're not being particularly honest either. There's something called the Oppenheimer effect. I don't know whether you know this, but Robert Oppenheimer was kind of the father of the atomic bomb. He headed up the Manhattan Project during the Second World War, and they produced the bombs that were dropped on Hiroshima and Nagasaki. And they worked. They had tunnel vision. They said, we're going to make this bomb. And then when they finally saw the destructive effect and that they had killed 80,000 people in Hiroshima, innocent civilians, it's like, okay, was this a good idea what we did? Maybe it was, maybe it wasn't. The Oppenheimer effect. Keep that in mind. So morals, the beliefs I've accepted, and ethics is how I practice these beliefs. The thing is, all these little bitty compromises can add up to big, big issues. We say, oh, well, we'll do a little there, we'll do a little there. Oh, it doesn't matter if I do that. But suddenly, you've gotten bad habits, or you've introduced a lot of things into your product or your service that are not necessarily good for the user. The Massachusetts Institute of Technology has a really interesting site, the MIT Media Lab, where they have a game. They talk a lot about the ethics and governance of artificial intelligence. And they have the game is called The Moral Machine. And I don't know whether you can see my cursor, but there's the URL for it. And I'll make sure that all these slides are made available to you. They have a lot of questions regarding how self-driving cars should behave. And so if we look over on the left, we have a car with 5 passengers, and the brakes have failed, and it's about to crash into a concrete barrier. If it does, all 5 passengers are going to die. Or the car can swerve, but it's going to kill 3 people in the crosswalk. So how do you program the car? What should it do? Again, these are not black and white questions. We need to be thinking about this stuff because it's incredibly relevant. The key ethical issues, the really important things today are privacy, security, and intellectual property rights. Who owns what we do? I don't publish articles on LinkedIn because LinkedIn, if you read their terms and conditions very carefully, says, oh, no, we own all the good ideas that you put out there. So, well, I get a lot of good ideas, and I'm kind of in the business of getting good ideas. I'll share them, but I'm not going to share them on your platform because LinkedIn, I'm sorry, they're not yours. They're public domain. I'm making them available. Security, oh man, we have so many different logins here in Denmark. I mean, I took a COVID test day before yesterday because I was sick, and I figured it's just a cold, but who knows? I had been to a fair in Germany. There had been a lot of people, and we were very good. We had masks on and all that. I figured, no, I'm going to be on the safe side. And I get an SMS saying that my results are in. But it took me half an hour to get through all the legal and security hoops so that I could see the result. Just tell me I'm negative, which I am, by the way. Crazy. Privacy. Who owns things? Where are they? What happens? I'm always amazed. I spoke with a woman in the United States who had been talking with her husband about a particular dog food. I don't have a dog, but they were talking about dog food. And so suddenly her Facebook feed is filled up with dog food ads. She wasn't online. She wasn't surfing the internet. The only thing they hadn't their living room was a Samsung Smart TV. And so the question is the TV listening and then selling the data to Facebook? This is stuff that we need to find out. And it's very scary. And of course, diversity, inclusion, and harassment, all of the Me Too stuff is violently important. And we do need to be inclusive. I mean, I live in Denmark where we have a fairly homogeneous society. I can't find a black female user experience expert. It's going to be very difficult, but it doesn't mean that I don't think about it, and it doesn't mean that I don't try. And the demographics of Slovakia are different than the demographics of Denmark or Scandinavia, for that matter. But we certainly need to be inclusive, and more opinions the better. People from different backgrounds bring really interesting ideas to the table. In the same way, we were talking at the beginning that both of us had come from with a theater background. We can bring things to the table that somebody who studied anthropology couldn't bring. But the anthropologist is going to bring things that we don't know anything about. So diversity, inclusion, harassment. We don't want to harass people. The questions we need to ask are, is this right? Is it respectful? Is it responsible? Whatever we're doing, is it fair? And is it legal? Man, there's a lot of stuff that goes on that is not legal. I mean, we have the GDPR rules and we have our obligatory cookie things, but man, there are a lot of form fields that still ask for your gender or your phone number, and these are not relevant questions to complete the transaction, and that makes them illegal within the EU. So this is what we need to be considering. So the 7 deadly sins: manipulating the research, faking the content, promoting addiction, dark patterns, faking communities of thought. This is where we're into YouTube showing you the same kinds of videos. Offensive artificial intelligence and artificial intelligence theater. Let me just go through these very, very quickly.
Eric, I'm sorry, hope you can hear me. We're getting messages from the chat that the audience can't hear you.
All right, I had it on mute.
Yes,
right,
we can right now. So
yeah,
the
no,
last
I'm
thing
sorry.
we've heard was like 2 slides ago. Thank you.
Right. Did you hear this?
Yes.
Okay, good. Thank you so much. I apologize. No, I was talking
Absolutely
about
no problem. Go ahead.
I was talking about Volkswagen. Volkswagen cheated in the data. They they claimed their emissions on diesel cars were lower than they actually were, and basically they hacked the software. And I think I know how they hacked the software, because I know the people who designed the software. Not that they were responsible, but I think that Volkswagen had a clue as to where the back doors were. The point is, Volkswagen shares fell dramatically. It's not a good thing. You don't want to do this. It's unethical. We have tons of online casinos in Denmark, and they are encouraging people to gamble. And of course, everybody in the ads, they always win. No, you don't win. and the 100 free spins or whatever you're going to get, this is not necessarily a good thing. They are promoting ludomania in a very unpleasant way. There's a fellow, Harry Brignell, in Brighton, England, and he has a site called Dark Patterns, and there are about a dozen of these dark patterns. They're things that make you want to buy or sign up or do something that maybe isn't necessarily in your interest. So I urge you, look up Harry Brignell and Dark Patterns and go and visit his site, because it's really important. So what we can do, we can monitor our database. We can watch out for personal or political agendas. I mean, if we're trying to, well, I don't like whatever, and I'm going to program it so that it does something that somebody else may not like. That's not good. You've got to think about your own moral and ethical responsibility. We are the last stop. We can build a lot of this stuff in that, and nobody will ever see the little tweak or the little box we checked. And call bullshit when you see it. If somebody is telling you to do something and you know it's wrong, you've got to tell them so. Because if you don't, nobody else is. And that's where we start to get into trouble. First of all, being principled is difficult. It just is. And people are going to yell at you. There will always be consequences to your action. You may lose some friends. Of course, you try to be diplomatic. You try to be gentle, but the greater the ethical violation, the harder you need to push. And sometimes it's good to get fired. If your company is really asking you to do things that are morally and ethically wrong, then maybe you should be looking for another job. You'll be happier. You'll have a better conscience. Garbage in, garbage out. This is a pub sign from the United Kingdom called the squirrel. Well, obviously, this is not a squirrel. This is a rooster. But the machine is going to say, oh, a squirrel and a rooster are the same thing. Okay, we have a problem. We need to go in and we need to look at the database and make sure that the computer understands, that the algorithm understands what we're trying to do. And yet, man, Google completely screwed up. Black people in the United States were labeled as gorillas because their algorithm thought, oh, yeah, whoa, dark skin, and that must be a gorilla. Wow, not good. So you've got to validate your assumptions. You've got to test. You've got to look at your data and find genuine insights. Screw the big data. I don't care. 1,000 data points. One insight is worth 1,000 data points. Look for the patterns. Look for cultural bias, either because of sex discrimination or race or for religious reasons. These are things we can do. And you've got to train your algorithm with unbiased data. We all know what happened to, what was her name, Tara or Tanya, or the Twitter bot that Microsoft came up with a couple of years ago. Well, man, all the right-wing racists fed her with information, and within 48 hours, she was a horrible person, this avatar. Which also means you need to monitor the bot regularly. And if you've done some tweak, go back and look and see, well, what are the results? What is it doing? Don't let it learn bad behaviors. Clive Lavery, a lovely Englishman who lives in Berlin, did an interesting study, and there's an article called Being a Digital Do-Gooder. It turns out that, over 75% of us have had second thoughts. We've regretted perhaps working on with a client or a project. I think that that's interesting. But what's scary is very few of us have refused to work on for a certain client or project. I think that this is what we need to be doing. You've got to say no. There are things that I will not do. I smoke and I drink, but I'm not going to do advertising or marketing for companies to sell tobacco or alcohol. That's what I think. I think it's probably better not to smoke or drink, but I do. Ken Olsen, back in 1977, he was head of digital equipment, says there's no reason for anybody to have a computer in his home. That was them. Oh, and by the way, then the big computers were the TRS-80 and the Apple II. Very cool. Well, today, this is from outside the parliament in Bucharest a couple of years ago, where people were complaining about some various government actions. Every one of those smartphones out there has more computing power than the Apollo spaceship that went to the moon in 1969. And this is also why we can do AI, because we can do deep learning in a way that we could anticipate back in 1988, but we couldn't actually do it because there were no computers that were strong enough to do it. Today we can. But then there are crazy things that happen. This gentleman, he has to press accept terms and conditions every time he turns on his oven. Oh, for goodness sakes. A Tesla, believe me, Tesla is a lovely car, but if it wants to update its software, it doesn't care that it's raining and you have to get to the airport and you're on a schedule. It's going to say, no, I need to update my software. I'm not going to let you drive your car. This is not good user experience. We have a lot of power, and with that power comes responsibility. And a couple of years ago, we were about 50 people who got together to write the Copenhagen letter on ethics. And actually, I think it's over 7,000 today. I forgot to correct that number. It was kind of a cool group. There was a founder of Kickstarter and some pretty high-powered people. And we worked for 48 hours trying to figure out how to write this letter, an ethical letter that expressed our goodwill, that our willingness to do the right thing. A lot of paper, a lot of coffee. And this is the letter. And I proudly signed it right down there at the bottom. I would urge you to go in and find it and sign up, and if you don't sign up, at least read it and think about the things that we think are important, because they are determining the future. Here's the URL. There's only one question you need to ask yourself: would I want my family to use what I'm making? And if the answer is no, then you shouldn't be making it. Thank you very much. Dziękuję. I can be found here. And that's the end of that. Now I need to stop sharing my screen. I need to figure out how to do that. There I am.
Eric, thank you very much. That was awesome.
Thank you. I couldn't see the comments or the chats.
No problem. No problem. We have checked them for you, and you're getting lots of praise. I think you can already see it now. I'd like to encourage our audience members to, if you please, write your questions into the chat if you're interested in asking Eric anything. Meanwhile, I will have to do it for you. Eric, in the beginning, you said that.
Wow!
You feel like
people are so sweet. I'm just looking through the comments. A lot of them.
This has been happening all along.
A lot of them are in Czech, so you're going to have to give me some time to translate them. I speak other languages, but not Czech.
No, those were from previous talks that went on in Slovak or Czech.
Oh,
but
okay.
You've only gotten like thumbs up and appraisals. I'd like to give you one question. In the beginning, we thank you, Eric. In the beginning, you said you have this feeling like Americans can't really distinguish between ethics and morals. Mm-hmm. It kind of made me smile in my head, because I really don't think that Europeans are any better at that. And personal experience, I think the first time I realized that these two are maybe quite different things, but the line between them can be truly thin, was reading The Godfather from Mario Puzo, who was an American writer. So that's what I call cultural exchange. You also mentioned, like, is this a good thing to do? Is this fair? Is this ethical? Is this legal? I think that sometimes these three things are truly hard to distinguish. Also, given legality, which is different a few hundred miles away from a particular place where you actually are in the moment. So you, as somebody with truly international experience, do you have any kind of a feeling that talking about this with like American colleagues, American designers, talking to American audience maybe, or in Europe or in Asia? I think you've probably discussed this with many different people already. Do you think there's truly like some local specifics, or is there really any kind of cultural difference that we live, or aren't we basically all the same frail creatures that find it difficult to navigate this?
No, we are different. There are cultural differences. I live in Scandinavia, and if we just take a very simple web design, we'll have a lot of white space, and it's all very, very aesthetic.
Mm-hmm.
And if I show this to a friend in Japan, they say, "Well, it's very nice. When are you going to finish it?" Because
Looks empty.
it looks empty. Space
Yeah.
in Japan is at a premium, and so, man, their stuff gets packed in. Are you using white or are you using red? Red is the color of weddings in the Far East. White is the color you use for funerals. But
Funerals, yes.
you would never dream of having a red wedding dress in Scandinavia.
Maybe in a Tarantino movie.
Oh yeah, well yeah, but Tarantino movies, don't get me started on that.
Yeah, same here. I think we already agree. So yes, I mean, we sometimes say that UX is local, or if we speak about localizing some kind of software, it's not just translation, right? It's not just about language. So the culture goes a lot deeper. And
Okay, well,
do you think
but
that's?
I'm
Go
sorry.
ahead.
No, well, I spent about 30 years in business to business advertising, and if you were selling consumer products, toothpaste and whatever, lotions, perfume, there were big differences from one country to another. But in terms of business to business, a dentist in Stockholm had more in common with a dentist in Bratislava than he had with his next door neighbor. So if we're designing an app that is supposed to do something very specific, we don't necessarily need to worry about the cultural differences. Now, if we look at the app we're using now, this Hop In, are they a sponsor?
I don't think so.
Okay. Considering that this is World Usability Day, it was so difficult. We did 2 dry runs where we tried to figure out how to get a PowerPoint into, and it can't be done. It will work with Keynote, but it will not work with anything on a PC. So this is why I couldn't see you. I couldn't see the chat because I had to share my entire screen. And all I could see was my presentation. When I went to log in, I had promised you that 1:15, I would log in and be all ready to go at 1:30. And so 1:15, I get on and it says, your password is wrong.
Yes,
Okay,
this
so
is
I check my password again. It's right. I type it in. Doesn't like it. It says log in with email. All right, I'll log in with email. I use my email login. It won't let me in. Uh, then it locked me out because I had tried to get in too many times. So I had to have it send an email to my address so that I could unlock the damn computer. I got it unlocked. What happened then? Oh, well, it finally let me in. Oh, I found out in Gmail, if I start to type my email address, I can just click a button and it fills in that was one of the things that it didn't like. It wanted me to actually type in all the little letters. When I finally got in, it wouldn't show me my camera. It said, "Oh, well, you have to shut down Zoom and Skype." And so I don't have Zoom and Skype open. So, and as you know, at 13:27, 3 minutes
Yes.
before we were supposed to start, I had to restart my computer, which is why my PowerPoint was not up and running when I started the presentation. I was getting frantic because I came on time. I was doing all the things I was supposed to do. But I'll tell you, hop in if you're listening. We need to talk.
Yeah, we're running it on a smart TV in here in the studio, so it's probably listening already, but sending it to Amazon. Okay, Eric, I'd like to ask you a question from the audience.
Yes.
Jan is asking us, great talk, thank you. Any more sources to share on the topic? Maybe as something you'd like to recommend to watch, to read?
Yeah, there's a talk from Interaction Design, the conference, in, I guess, about 2018. A fellow by the name of Alan Cooper, who you may know. He claims to have invented personas, and he wrote about face with Robert Riemann. Great book, by the way. Alan Cooper, Cooper, and he talks about ancestry responsibility, and that we need to not just be designing for the next year, but what's going to happen in 10 years, in 50 years, in 100 years? What are our great-grandchildren going to be doing? And so he talks a lot about some of this, well, many of the same things that I've talked about here, the Oppenheimer effect, for example, and so on. I think he has a cooler video than I do, but it should be online. And but look at Alan Cooper and say Alan Cooper and ancestry. I think that's probably one of the best things. And then this Clive Lafferty, who's a good friend from Berlin, a Brit but lives in Berlin. He's done some things for the IXDA, the Interaction Design Association, that I thought were just really, really good. So some of us have been talking about ethics for a long time. There are very few people that have been listening, and this is also why, you know, you turn on CNN and you watch the American news, and oh, Zuckerberg's in trouble again. Oh, Apple's in trouble again. Oh, Google's in trouble again. Yeah, we've been warning about this for years, but nobody's listened. So maybe
News
now
like
they'll
this
do
are
something.
already being called old news. Okay, we have all that written down. We'll try to look up the presentation or the talk that you mentioned, and we'll put it into chat. We also have another question. Fun fact, this is from Maite, who was one of your predecessors today. He gave speech number 2, and it was awesome. So thanks for a great talk, Eric. What is your opinion about designing a tool that might be used in various ways, some of them ethical and some of them not? Like nuclear energy you mentioned, should the designers be cautious and rather stay away? Or do they have means to impose their own ethical views on the tool, and should they?
Right, that's a really good question. Because if we look at nuclear weapons, they've actually helped us avoid a lot of wars since 1945, because we have this mutual deterrent effect. You know, if you drop the bomb, I'm going to drop the bomb, and we're all going to die. So that's maybe not a good idea.
But wasn't maybe this balance of power reached by the fact that the weapons were designed well enough and made in numbers huge enough?
Right. Well, exactly. So the question is, was it right to build the weapon, or was it wrong to build the weapon? And I can't give you an answer. The Geneva conference on, or the Glasgow conference on the environment, lots of discussions. And oh man, listening to the politicians just makes my head ache, because, oh, well, you know, we have to, you know, gradually get rid of the fossil fuels, and we have to do this. And are we all going to drive electric cars? No, because most of the lithium carbonate you need to make the batteries is either in Bolivia and Afghanistan, and those are countries that are not necessarily very fond of the West. So are we going to replace one part of the world that doesn't like Western Europe for another part of the world? I don't know. I, 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 I this is not black and white. And so when we say that nuclear power plants are bad, uh, let's examine that more carefully. I don't approve of nuclear power because we don't know how to get rid of the waste. There are also a couple of different kinds of reactors. The graphite reactor in Chernobyl is a bad design. Uh, I, uh, but there are other reactors that are better. But what are we going to do? Can we use the wind? Can we use solar? What are the solutions? And it's probably going to end up being a combination of all these things. But I'm sorry, I'm just waffling on.
Maybe I'd like to point out one thing. Mate did talk about data and about using it, which usually speaks a specific this or that quite clear language, which probably makes it obvious why the question is the kind of a yes or no question. But I believe also, according to what you said in your presentation, that it's usually not a yes or no world, is it?
No, it's not. And actually, Mate, the easy question is, uh, if you're designing a hammer, something to hammer in nails, are you doing something that is ethically bad? Probably not. But somebody can use that hammer to bash in somebody's head and kill them. So I don't hold you responsible for having designed a hammer. But I think that we at least need to be thinking about this stuff. And some of the things I've been asked to do in my career, I have said no, and it's gotten me into trouble, and I've lost clients. But I'm sorry, I don't want to participate in this. I don't think it's correct. I don't think it's good. I don't approve. It's up to you.
I think Robert Oppenheimer really realized that the moment he said, "Now I am become death, the destroyer of worlds," in it.
By the way,
Next question.
Joseph just posted the link to the Alan Cooper video, trying to be a good ancestor. So thank you, Joseph.
Awesome, thank you. I think we have another question. So Barbara says, the new models that go along what you are proposing say that we should enrich the viable, desirable, and feasible triangle with the ethical part, thus making it a square, I guess. Just because we can, or it makes money, or because people want it. Should we really do it? And it sounds very logical, but if we push it, why should my personal ethics be a gatekeeper to someone else's experience? Having integrity is great and hard to argue with, but if you push it further, you get to a point of imposing your values onto others. How do you view this, Eric?
If I say no to a project, I'm not imposing my values. I'm just saying find somebody else to do this.
Fair enough. Long question, short answer. Sometimes it is probably this easy.
No, I think, Barbara, you've got a very good point there, and it's true. But I think we do have an obligation to have a dialogue if we see something that isn't right, and if it pushes. I mean, maybe we're wrong. Hey, who knew? Maybe somebody can say, no, Eric, you're wrong. We need to be doing this because. I think changing your mind is a good. We have rules. It's like parents say, oh, the children need to be in bed by 9 o'clock in the evening. Okay, that's the rule. Kids in bed by 9 o'clock. But hey, they're going to see their grandma, who they haven't seen in 2 years because of COVID, and it's been locked down, and she's going to be arriving at 10:30 in the evening. Yeah, let the kids stay up and see their grandma. There are exceptions to every rule, and there will be exceptions to your moral and ethical rules too. Thou shalt not kill. Well, apparently, we gladly send soldiers out in the field to kill others, and nobody seems to worry about that. Uh, you have to make a personal decision, but
Um,
sometimes you just have to say no.
I think this question is sort of touching a topic we have now and then stumbled upon throughout the day. Some of the speakers before you mentioned that they also like refused to project because it was about gambling, betting online, stuff like that.
Yeah.
And we haven't really discussed it that deeply. I think you've already expressed quite a lot of what what the previous speakers could agree on. That if I say I'm not going to do it, I'm not saying it's not supposed to happen at all. It's not like my personal no puts an end to entire gambling online. It just means I'm not going to take part, and maybe that's one of those thin lines between morals and ethics. Like, I'm not saying I'm ethically fixing the entire world. I'm just trying to stay morally okay with myself. In
Yeah.
the end, you go to sleep and you see only yourself in the mirror, nobody else. And maybe that's just trying to stay okay with yourself because you're the only person with whom you'll have to spend your entire whole life.
That's right. I'm not a very religious person. I know that I talked about the wedding in Canaan, and I had a picture of Moses coming down from the mountain, who looked like he was about to kill people with those tablets. I'm not a very religious person. That doesn't mean that I haven't read the Bible and the Quran and the Book of Mormon and some other things, the Egyptian Book of the Dead. I have a background in Egyptology. But it doesn't necessarily mean that I believe it all. But I have a deal with God, and that is that I try to be the best person I can be, and I don't lie, I don't cheat, I don't steal. I pretty much stick to the commandments, but we've all broken them. But if we take the strict Christian version of God, and say, well, God created you in his image. And I said, good, well, here I am, up at the pearly gates, up in heaven. And so if he's not going to let me in, I'm not sure that I want to get in there. I've done everything I can to do the right thing, and I'm not going to cheat, and I'm not going to steal. And I mean, right now we've got professional sports players who refuse to wear a mask or get vaccinated, and are getting people sick. But they say, "Oh no, it's my right to make other people sick." No, it isn't. No, it isn't. I, I, or Messi or others, they change millions and millions of euros a year, and yet they cheat on their taxes. How much money do you need? Come on.
All of it.
I'm sorry. I can't go along with that. Maybe I'm going to die very poor, but I'm not going to die a cheat. And if there is a God up in heaven, he's going to let me in because I'm doing everything I can to be a good person, even though I am not a believer.
That sounds really reasonable, and it seems like this answer has been more than satisfying. You're getting more applause in the chat. I'm not sure if you can see it now,
Oh
including
yes,
from Mate, with his previous question. Okay, as far as I see,
I think Roman has a very interesting comment. Is that if you send them to
yeah.
find someone else, they will. So there's a risk of it ending up worse. A rehash of the conductor dilemma. I'm not quite sure what the conductor dilemma is, but
I think it's the trolley that's rolling down the rail, and it's going to kill 5 people, but we can switch the rail to the left where it kills
yes,
a different number, but you've done something versus you have not done. It's going to happen anyway. It's a great
right.
point.
You can absolutely end up with something worse. It depends on, Roman, when you want to leave the project or when you say, no, enough is enough. I'm not going to do this. And someday I hope to meet you in Bratislava because I have a story that I will not share in this particular forum, but it will perhaps tell you a little more about why I think the way I do. But I think you've made a very good point.
hopefully in 1 year time, we can make that happen live.
Yeah, let's do a workshop.
I'm absolutely in. Okay, I have your email.
You have my
and
email?
I also follow you on Twitter. I'm one of like 7 people in Slovakia who are on Twitter. So
every time I post anything on Twitter, I always get a whole bunch of people. So I've kind of stopped doing anything on Twitter.
But I can message you
anyway.
anyway.
I really want to spend my day arguing with 50 people I don't know and don't care about?
Absolutely not. You can rather spend your time here where the strangers giving you applause in the chat.
No, I have strangers who understand our business and are bringing interesting points of view to the table, to the discussion. And so I thank you all of you, I appreciate the applause. I appreciate the questions. I'll tell you, Slovakia is such an interesting country, and all right, so then we start to get into politics.
Okay,
the shit that happened after the First World War, where this fictional country of Czechoslovakia was created, and
don't get me started.
Americans don't know the difference between Slovakia and Slovenia, and anyway, I think you guys are great.
Eric, I think you've been great. And I would like to thank you very much on behalf of both my own and all the audience members. I think there's more than 300 people with us online here. It's been a great pleasure. I thank you so. Please take our hellos to Copenhagen. I hope you're doing well. And
I certainly will.
Absolutely hope
doing
you're
very
able to
well.
meet in the future.
Look. I'm sitting in my kitchen, and it's starting to be sunshine outside, and that's Sweden over there on the other side.
That's your idea of sunshine.
It's
Scandinavia, I get it.
Yeah, well, it's Scandinavian sunshine.
Okay.
Whatever, but it's been such a pleasure to be here, and you've been a brilliant host. I mean, thank you so much, and I've really enjoyed being here. Thank all of you who put up with this, and with my coughing, and with my slivovitz, and my tea, and and forgetting to unmute the thing. You've been great, and I've really enjoyed this. I hope you have a great rest of the day, and I do hope that we'll see each other in Bratislava sometime.
We hope so too, Eric. Thank you so much. Be well. Goodbye.
Thank you very much. Bye-bye.
Ladies and gentlemen, dámy a páni, toto bola posledná prednáška dnešného dňa. Myslím si, že to dnes bol veľmi pekný program, veľmi výživný. Ja by som týmto chcel vlastne poďakovať všetkým vám, ktorí ste dnes pozerali, všetkým, ktorí ste sa boli pozrieť aj v expostánkoch. Chcem tiež poďakovať našim rečníkom a rečničkám, menovite Adamovi Švarcovi, Matejovi Novotnému, Danielovi Čeligovi, Miške Kočiovej, Jitke Bartošovej a Erikovi Reissovi. Ďakujeme takisto našim partnerom, napríklad hlavnému partnerovi tohto ročníka firme Good Request. Ďakujeme tiež partnerom dnešného podujatia Tatra Banke, Global Logicu, User Experience Academy od Flow Bakery a firmám Accenture, Lighting Beetle, IT Valley a Lugis Box. Technologickými partnermi dnešného podujatia bola Figma a UX Week. K tomuto mám pre vás dobrú správu. Všetci zaregistrovaní účastníci, ktorí ste nás dnes pozerali, dostanete e-mailom od Figmy odmenu, dostanete polročné predplatné zadarmo, to znamená, že professional plan na Figmu budete môcť používať za presne 0 korún slovenských, ako sa hovorí. A takisto máme aj cenu od UX Weeku. 3 z vás vyžrebujeme, ktorí tiež dostanú polročné predplatné zadarmo. Aj s voľnou stoličkou pre ďalšieho človeka do týmu. Dozviete sa o tom e-mailom. Ďakujeme taktiež mediálnym partnerom, to znamená Stardida, Probíme IT a Index Magu. Ďakujeme všetkým, ktorí sa v sukse na tomto podujatí dnes podielali, respektíve to je poďakovanie odo mňa. Ďakujeme technickej réžii, ďakujeme produkčnej správe, ďakujeme všetkým, ktorí dnes na tom pracovali. ktorí dodnes na tom pracovali, aby sme sa tu dnes mohli takto vidieť a počuť. E-mailom dostanete feedbackové formuláre, ktoré by sme vás chceli veľmi pekne poprosiť, aby ste vyplnili, pretože vedieť, aký ste mali z dnešného podujatia, z dnešných prednášok a z dnešného expa dojem, pocit, čo sa vám páčilo, nepáčilo, všetko nám napíšte, všetko nás bude zaujímať, všetko sa pokúsime do budúceho roka urobiť lepšie, viacej a krajšie. A mám pocit, že to je asi v tejto chvíli všetko. Ďakujeme vám veľmi pekne za pozornosť. Sledujte Suxu na sociálnych sieťach, na YouTube nájdete čoskoro aj záznamy z dnešných prednášok. A moje meno bolo Michal Zaričňák. Majte sa dobre.